it'll come down to where there's a vacancy.
Okay.
They can select from that.
Right.
Montgomery County 911, what's the address of the emergency?
Welcome to another episode of Voices of Service. Today, it's just myself and Chief Francke. And I know we've had a lot of changes in our department, so I thought it would be a great opportunity to kind of address some of those and understand why they've been made. So,
Yep.
Chief, thanks for being here as our guest.
Sure. Wow, This is tough. I get to sit on the other side now. We've done this once before, but yeah, we've had some changes. Chief Imada's directed some changes. The biggest one is the change in assistant chief assignments.
Yeah.
So I used to be chief of management services.
And that happened in February?
February.
Around February?
Yeah,
Okay.
February 9th. So it's been about a month.
Okay.
And so now I am the chief of patrol.
And so, can you tell us a little bit about what it is or some of the changes that you're, I guess, putting into action now that you're there?
Sure, all kinds of. So, and for everyone that's listening, patrol services, generally you see a Montgomery County police car with lights and sirens on top. Those folks are patrol.
Yeah.
They're answering the 911 calls. So we have the 6 district stations, and we have the duty commanders, the captains that go around at night. So that falls under me now.
Mm-hmm.
It's the bulk of the department as far as sworn officers, and really doing a couple things because we're in the midst of this staffing crisis.
Right. And that's something that we've talked about on here before as well.
Yeah, and we're doing our darndest to get people into the academy.
Yeah.
It's still a challenge. Got a couple things left to do there, but but I'm hopeful.
Yeah.
But right now, what I'm kind of tasked with is Chief Imada gave me some directions on some of the things he wants me to work on, and so I'm going about that. But with anything you do when you get a new position, at least in my opinion, you go around and listen and watch and see what's happening.
Observe, right?
Yeah. So for the last month, I've been going to roll calls. Haven't been to all of them. We got more to do. So if there's any of my patrol officers watching, I'm coming.
Right, and for our community, really quick, so roll calls happen before every shift.
Yep.
And we have multiple shifts throughout the day in all of the different districts.
Yes.
That you're going to visit.
Yep. I've been trying to visit overlaps. Overlaps are days when, because our schedule's four 10-hour days.
Yeah.
There's days that they work together, and if I get to those, I can talk to more people.
Right.
So I'm hearing their concerns. I mean, staffing, number one. They're concerned about our hiring standards. They're concerned about where we're going with patrol, how to focus on the important things, like what's important for us to focus on when we have so few resources.
Yeah.
And those were all things I kind of knew I needed to work on, but I've gotten some good feedback. And it's important I listen to not only my commanders and my executives, but the officers that are out there doing the work.
Really quick, I don't want to sidetrack you, but was there anything that was brought to your attention that was a surprise to you? Or did you kind of see everything happening?
A lot of it I understood. There was a couple ideas that I got from the officers that I was down in 2D and someone had an idea. And this is the beauty of getting to talk to people, is someone has an idea that you haven't either had the time to work on or just didn't even realize.
Yeah.
So there's a couple things there that we're working on as far as how to handle calls. Calls maybe we shouldn't be going to.
Okay.
Or issues there. I did find the discussion on our standards for hiring very interesting because, you know, one of the challenges is we have so many people now that don't want to be the police, coming out of college and applying for these jobs. And how do you get more people in the door? You got to change what you're doing. You got to change the game plan. And the officers are very concerned about, you know, lowering standards, which, you know, my response has been, you know, when we're looking at different things like college credit or cannabis use, things like that, the biggest thing to me when I was in management services was character. I wanted to hire on character. If I have someone that's got a work history of 3 to 5 years and their bosses say, my gosh, this guy or gal is the best thing since sliced bread, is a problem solver and so forth. That's what's important.
Yeah.
So you got to be very careful with that as you work on standards. And we've got some things that we're going to talk through and Chief Imada needs to make a decision on. But the biggest thing is getting more people in the academy to be out on the road, because right now I just looked at the numbers this morning, we're 155 short of where we were a couple years ago in patrol. But I want to be clear, that's not even where we should be in patrol.
Right.
And that's part of one of my jobs, is to come up with a strategic plan for staffing in patrol, which I'm just at the beginnings of, but there's some other things that need to come first. So I've been going, like I said, I've been going through and talking to people and answering questions. I know there's more questions out there. One of the biggest questions is about what we're doing with redistricting and also the 3rd District, 4th District sector plan.
Yeah.
So those are in process, and I'm working through the details to put that into place.
Are there any details that you can provide here?
There are actually, and the 3rd District. So everyone knows, our county has 6 districts, and 3 of them are, well, actually 2.5 of them. It's odd how things have changed. So I was the patrol XO executive officer when I was a lieutenant, like over a decade ago, about a dozen years ago now. And we had 3 districts that were deployed traditionally and 3 districts that were deployed geographically.
Okay.
And the bottom line is, there for anyone listening, if they've watched any TV show, generally they see this traditional shift where they come in and they get their assignments and go out. And then we had these geographic ones where there's 3 different sergeants, 3 different sectors, and they're supposed to focus on those. So we decided, Chief Imada decided, that we're going to move to the best of both worlds with that deployment in all the districts. So
Okay.
I'm calling it traditional geo-deployed.
Okay.
So we're going to get down to 2 sectors. All the other 4 of the districts already have just 2 sectors.
Right. I know in 5D we had 2 sectors.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm
Okay.
learning all the sector numbers.
Okay.
So in 5D, you guys had 2 sectors.
Yep, the Nancy and the Mary side.
Yep. And then in 4D and 3D, so I was a commander in 3D, we had George, Henry, and Ida.
Okay.
And then in 4D, where I worked in patrol, we had John, King, and Lincoln.
Okay.
So what we're doing is we're bringing them down to 2 sectors. Really all it is a change in naming, one thing. But number 2 is we're going to take some sergeants and move them to other districts to build up our supervision there, because the span of control was too big. And all of this is going through to a much bigger project in the future. But the first thing we want to do is get everyone deployed the same. So we're going to bring down the 3rd District and the 4th District, 2 sectors. There's going to be some sergeants, and I'm working through the transfer list right now. So when you become an officer here, there's a Patrol Services transfer list. Back when I was there as field service, you can put in a request for consideration to be transferred to another district, and it goes by seniority.
Yep.
Seniority when you put in. If there's a tie, like if you and I put in on the same date, then it
I'm
goes
not
to
winning.
you might not. Well, hopefully I don't get to, I don't think I can put in transfers like that. Anyway, I'm going through that right now.
Okay.
Because I want to honor the transfers of senior sergeants.
Right.
And then at the end of it, there'll be vacancies. And for the junior sergeants that are affected by this change, they can go down and select from the menu of where we need sergeants.
Okay.
At least that's what I'm going to
So
try.
they will be able to select that.
Yes, and it'll come down to where there's a vacancy. They
Okay.
can select from that.
Right.
It's not ideal. I know it impacts these sergeants. any kind of change. Cops hate change.
I was literally in my mind thinking, we hate change,
Yes.
but we also don't necessarily always like the way things are right now.
Right.
Which is
Right.
hard.
That, interestingly enough, that's one of the things, going back to your other question, that's one of the things I found is like, when I've talked about the changes that are coming, I was like, whoa, but you were just saying you wanted change.
Yeah.
So we have to do this, we're going to do this. I'm trying to find the best way to do it so that it's not terribly impactful. You know, the conditions are going to stay the same other than the commute, right? I mean, we're doing our best to honor people's hours, but like with any place, the most junior people, they might not get the hours they want.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, this is a great place to work. You still have a free car essentially, right?
Yeah.
You can drive to and from work, or if you live in the county or close to the county, you can drive it wherever. Free gas, things like that. It's just we're going to change the location of where you're working. So.
And when you say hours, you're talking shifts, just for the community who's
Yes,
listening
yes.
as well. And I do want to clarify as well, because I know that there's going to be a lot of officers who are listening because they want to know kind of the plan for the
Yes.
redistricting and the reorganization. But also for a community, I want them to understand that this is not going to impact the service that they get. By, like I said, in 5D, we've always had the Mary and the Nancy, right? And we knew how to work that. Just because in 3 and 4D they're going from 3 sectors down to 2, the service is the same.
Service is the same. Nothing's going to change. Just the name of the sector that your neighborhood falls in. And in fact, it's funny you bring that up. I got an email from Chief Yamada and me and some other people got an email from J.J. Green, who's a community member. Also, people recognize his name from listening to him on the radio. So he's done a fantastic job in his community, building a collaboration between the 3rd District officers and command staff and his neighborhood. Really doing fantastic stuff. And one of the things he brought up was this sector change. And again, I reassured him and I'm reassuring everyone, it's not going to change the service. It's not going to change what we're doing. This is actually going to make us more efficient with some other things. It's going to make us more efficient and it's going to lead to bigger things in the future. So nothing's changing on that end. And again, my hope is it gives us more time to be engaged with communities and some other changes that I'm working on in the future.
Now you keep saying some other changes. And me, I like to ask the question and see if we can have an answer. But is that going to be in a future episode that we kind of talk about some of those additional changes coming, or is there anything else that you can provide? Because we have officers and community listening now.
Well, I can talk generally. I mean, first, so the first thing, one of the bigger efforts that goes with the sector plan, this small sector change in 3 and 4D is you should always look at your workload and look at how to best balance the districts. And so we've got a team that's looking at redistricting in the future.
Okay.
And my guidance to them, because I was the last one that did it for the department a decade or 12 years ago. And we're looking at right now, Shelby was...
I was thinking Shelby in the back of my head.
Shelby was on, and so I've given him some direction. We're talking about some things about where we can go. I think there's some neat concepts of where we can go. We're very at the beginning of that.
Okay.
But that's where this is all leading.
Okay.
How can we best balance all the work in Montgomery County and have district stations that look similar? Because I'll be honest, right now we got 2 super stations. And when I say super stations, because they have like 20 and 30 more officers than other districts. And they have the workload to go with it.
Okay.
And really, ideally, you want to try and balance that with all the districts, balance the officers you need and the workload that's happening. But all of our districts are unique and have their own problems. So we're working towards that. I mean, in the more immediate future, I'm looking at crime problems. We have limited resources. We have to focus our efforts. And so I've got a few lieutenants that are working on making recommendations on calls for service that either need to be redirected to TRUE, our telephone reporting unit.
Okay.
I almost forgot our acronym
I know.
thing,
I
right?
almost had to jump in.
Our telephone reporting unit, or give some directions to officers that they can handle certain calls by phone because they have a work phone. The department's
Right.
issued them a phone for a number of reasons to be more efficient, and we're building apps and things on that. So giving direction there, and then some other things. You know, one of the beauties of policing and having a communication center is they're always open. Their phone always gets through to someone.
Yeah.
We have some folks that call 301-279-8000 or call even 911 for stuff that's not police stuff.
Correct. And we talked about that on here too.
Yeah.
When we had ECC on, our Emergency
Yes.
Communication Center, and they tried to clarify the difference between calling 311 or calling the non-emergency or 911.
Yes. So we're going to continue with that effort.
Okay.
And pushing things that way. But then again, the other thing is I want to give the officers guidance on these are the focus of the crime issues that we need to be working on,
Right.
And resolving. And it doesn't mean we're not going to pay attention to other crime, but there are some things that are impacting the citizens and their perceptions
Now. Yeah.
And so we need to be able to focus on those issues and put, again, what are limited resources towards those efforts.
Prioritize them.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's it.
Okay.
And I think officers are going to appreciate it. I was talking to midnight shifts in the 6th District the other night, and I talked about, traffic enforcement, and, priority for me is DWI enforcement. The majority, I want to say over 60% of our fatal accidents are people that are impaired. So, and unfortunately our numbers have gone up in fatal accidents. So let's focus on that because that's killing people.
Right.
And when I was a midnight sergeant and a midnight officer, that's what we focused on. Because there's more opportunities for that behavior, right? The bar
Right.
closes and they're out there. Everyone needs to take an Uber, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
Anyway, or Lyft. I don't want to.
No,
I don't want to limit the name brands.
Right.
Just get a ride home.
Yeah.
But we talked about that, and again, that's the kind of precision I want to give them to focus on. Again, we'll handle everything else too, but let's focus on these things.
Yeah. What's important now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot more details to come. Like I can speak generally with you,
Yeah.
but the important part is executing on these things.
Right.
And putting a plan in place and putting that out there for the officers in the community. We're going to tell the community
Yeah.
what we're focusing on. We're going to tell county council what we're focusing on so that they know that we're doing everything we need to be doing. And I think it's going to be a better path for us.
Yeah. Great.
So.
Communication is key, and being able to kind of let everybody know what's to come
Yeah.
is extremely helpful. So
Yep.
awesome. Chief, thank you
Sure.
for switching sides today. I appreciate
Sure.
it. And for the community, thank you. Until next time, stay safe and stay connected.